There is yet another incident of an ICE agent brutalizing a member of the clergy during a nonviolent protest. I want to show you the video, and then we need to talk about it in detail because I think that this is an incident that very clearly illustrates a greater issue with ICE. It's a reality that we need to understand so that we can more effectively organize against the illegal, cruel, and brutal actions of the American Gestapo known as ICE. Let me show you this video that's going viral today from Oakland, California. This is October 23rd in Oakland, California. You can see an ICE agent intentionally target a pastor and shoot him in the face with a less lethal at close range. That's Reverend Jorge Bautista, and that is the second time in the last 6 weeks ICE has targeted him at a protest. Now, initially when this story broke, we only had still images, and I was on Blue Sky this morning all over that like white on rice. Okay, so here's my post. I said, "Hi, this is extremely dangerous. Gas canisters and rubber bullets become lethal projectiles when fired at someone's face and or at close range." Initially, some people said that this was a tear gas canister. What we're hearing now in reporting that came out in the last hour is that Reverend Jorge Bautista said it was a pepper round fired at close range directly into his face. ReligionNews.com just posted a story about this in the last hour. It's by Hayden Royster. Let me just read it, a little bit of it here. Oakland, California. For the second time in 6 weeks, a pastor was struck in the head with a pepper round fired by a U.S. immigration agent as faith leaders protested the Trump regime's deportation efforts. The pastor, Reverend Jorge Bautista, was one of dozens of demonstrators who had gathered before sunrise yesterday, Thursday, October 23rd, at the entrance to Coast Guard Island, a military base near Oakland, where more than 100 U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents were supposed to arrive and stage that day. According to the reporting, members of the group Interfaith Movement for Human Integrity gathered, and they were praying and peacefully protesting and singing anthems like "We Shall Not Be Moved." When ICE agents showed up and began pushing their cars through and firing what were reported to be stun grenades, shortly thereafter, Reverend Bautista was struck in the face with a pepper round. Matthew Labor, who was hired as security by the interfaith group, also had his foot run over by an ICE vehicle. To be clear, as you saw in the video, the pastor was standing there simply holding a sign and exercising his constitutional right to free speech, when some little ICE agent marched up to him, aimed for his face, and shot a pepper ball directly at him. It struck him in the face. Less lethals cannot safely be deployed at somebody's head or neck. Pepper balls and gas canisters are supposed to be deployed at the ground. We are seeing over and over and over again ICE agents clearly, intentionally targeting protesters' necks, faces, and genitals. That's happening here in Portland. It's happening in Chicago. It's happening in California. Which brings me to the greater issue. We know that ICE is having a great deal of trouble recruiting. They've had to lower their standards repeatedly. We know that they recruit Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, but there's a limited pool of those, and any who are able are already working for ICE. And yet they still can't meet their quotas, so they've had to change the age limits. They now let much older and much younger people apply. They're no longer requiring the same level of education, and we're finding that they are bringing on board ICE agents who cannot pass the physical fitness tests. These guys don't have any training. Regular law enforcement should be trained in de-escalation, in emotion regulation. They should have gamed out scenarios where they are put in really stressful situations and have to keep their cool and follow the law. ICE has none of that. ICE are the fail sons of law enforcement. They can't get a job doing legitimate law enforcement. Nobody from the FBI, the CIA, nobody from the armed forces wants them. Are not qualified for any of those branches of service or law enforcement. And so the only place left to them is ICE, who takes the dregs, because that's all they can get. And yes, there is utility in making fun of them because they are a bunch of fail sons, because they are really sad. Never underestimate the power of mockery and ridicule as a nonviolent resistance tactic. But I, for one, am watching this kind of brutality that ICE is engaged in on a regular basis. We've seen them in Portland target people who are the most vulnerable. We've watched them target elderly veterans, including just a couple of days ago, an elderly veteran with a walker Being intentionally tear gassed by ICE. We saw a blind protester who's only 4'6" be targeted by ICE. 6 armed men dragged him off, hitting his head on the concrete. We saw agents at the ICE facility here in Portland tackle Oriana Carroll, who is a mother and a clarinetist in a band. They tackled her for playing a clarinet with the unprecedented brass. We've watched ICE engage in extreme, unhinged acts over and over and over. And I know a lot of people like to say that brutality is the point. They're going for the most vulnerable members at a protest on purpose. Right? Bullies are fucking cowards, so of course they always go for the most vulnerable, for the weakest looking person, and they target them. And I think people are correct. That is definitely some of what is happening. But I think that there is more to it than that. I think for a lot of these ICE agents, they have no emotion regulation. They can't cope with stressful situations. They have zero distress tolerance skills and very low emotional intelligence. That means when they are put into a high stakes, very stressful scenario, they can't control themselves and they operate based on fight or flight. They operate based on panic. And as we're watching more and more attorneys talk openly about how ICE does not have qualified immunity when it comes to violating the rights of American citizens, and as we're watching officials in California, New York, and Illinois talk about prosecuting members of ICE who commit crimes against Americans, we are now looking at a situation where ICE already couldn't control themselves. They already didn't have the training. They can't deal with stressful situations. They are incompetent, unhinged, out of control on a good day. And now they are going to be much more paranoid, right? This person, Dame of Destiny, that I'm replying to here said, they're so paranoid, which becomes a real issue when you know you're screwing over people illegally. She said, it's fun. I hope they spend all night peeking out of their hotel room curtains. And I'm actually more concerned because it's going to put them into a panic mode where they are second guessing themselves. They're going to be more impulsive. They're less able to regulate. Not that they could well in the beginning, right? Knowing that they can face legal consequences means that they will be more likely to be in panic mode. They have no ability to regulate themselves. Yeah, they need to know that what they're doing is illegal. We should not be living in a United States of America where ICE is operating as Donald Trump's personal paramilitary, and they think that they are entirely outside of the law and that they can brutalize pastors, elders, veterans, disabled folks. American citizens who are not breaking the law are exercising their constitutionally protected right to free speech. Yes, I think it's a really good thing that we are seeing state officials, local officials talking about protecting their citizens from the brutal illegal actions of ICE. Yeah, there need to be arrests and prosecutions. I did notice after Nancy Pelosi spoke up about this, suddenly Pam Bondi is opening a DOJ investigation into her. The regime does not want states to stand up. It's all about the fear and intimidation. The only thing they know how to do is threaten when you try to stand up for yourself. I think we need to be having pretty vocal conversations about the way that ICE is completely out of control. When you take somebody who can't regulate their emotions, doesn't know how to deal with stressful situations, has been having their big tough guy militia fantasies, when in reality, they're just scared little chicken shit pussy bitches who don't know how to control their own emotions and freak out when they see an 80-year-old veteran with a walker, or they see a kid in a bunny costume, a roller skater with a bubble wand, a pastor praying. These are men who cannot control their own emotions, who cannot control their behavior, who are out of control, and they have body armor and weapons against unarmed Americans. This is a very dangerous situation. Nowhere in the span of this discourse should we be considering ICE legitimate law enforcement. Their lack of training and their lack of control makes them uniquely dangerous. And the fact that up until literally the last couple of weeks, they have felt that they could do whatever they want and nobody will hold them accountable, that only compounds the threat to American citizens. That only compounds the threat to peaceful, nonviolent protesters who are trying to live their lives. Here's the guy who shot that pastor in the face at close range. This little fucker's been fantasizing his whole life about brutalizing other people. I don't know in the moment if he's pissing himself or creaming his pants. Either way, a little dude like this has no business being part of law enforcement. No, this is not normal. This is not normal. That guy should not be allowed anywhere near a weapon. None of these guys should be allowed in law enforcement. None of what they are doing to our immigrant neighbors is okay. None of what they are doing to protesters is okay. This cannot be normalized and allowed to continue in this country.